Free Impact magazine is pleased to welcome today on its program, The Cause Show, Mr. Ishmael Smith is here to discuss the division within the Black community. Welcome to this program.
Hey, thank you, Andy. It's good to be here. I'm glad we were able to make a time, and I'm excited to talk about this topic because while we are trying to achieve so much for the Black community, it's hard when there is so much conflict within the Black community.
Words such as light skin, dark skin, and brown are heard much more in the Black community today. Is it a self-division taking place within the Black community?
So I think it absolutely is a historical self-division taking place in the Black community. A lot of the ways that people of African descent in the Americas talk about their skin color is in reference to whiteness. This is a thing that comes from a history of colonialism and slavery. So when we hear these things, yes, it can be just a description, but for many, many years in the United States, it's been a marker of social status where lighter-skinned African-American, lighter-skinned Black people were seen as closer to whiteness, more deserving, and having a higher status within this country.
So how can the Black community grow and solidify in such circumstances?
So I think I want to start by saying that there is a lot of solidarity already within the Black community, but I do think it requires an open conversation. One, to know that we are having these distinctions and divisions, and to ask ourselves, I think really every person, every Black person should ask themselves, if I am in conflict with other Black people, does that conflict serve me and my community, or does it serve someone who would rather keep my community down? Because there are a number of pressing issues. You think about wages, incarceration, employment discrimination. All of these are issues that face the African-American community. And I think we have to ask ourselves, if I am in conflict with another person of African descent, and I think that really covers the whole of what we call the diaspora. Is that conflict productive, or could I be working with this person to achieve another goal? I'll just throw in, for example, a lot of the big movers and shakers in African-American history are not actually originally from the United States. When we think of, for example, Frantz Fanon, when we think of, for example, Marcus Garvey, a number of important African-American thought leaders have come from outside the United States itself. And there is, I think, a strong thread of Blackness that links our goals together.
So where does this trend come from? If we can look at it closely, what are the privileges? Can we even talk about privileges of this distinction between light, dark Black, and brown Black?
I think that we can, and like I said earlier, I think that it does come from a legacy of slavery and colonialism. So let's blow it up. Let's get really big, Andy. If we look at the whole world, the whole globe, and we look at all of the places where European countries conquered peoples or had significant influences, you can see a preference, a social status preference for lighter-skinned persons. Now that is in South Africa, that is in Egypt, it is in India, it is in Haiti, and it is in the United States, and overwhelmingly in the southern United States, where slavery lasted longer than it did in other parts of the country. Especially because, and I forgot to mention Latin America, because light-skinnedness was attributed to. It was not like a simple color variation between Black peoples. It is not, saying, oh, well, if I look at the Yoruba people and the Akan people, and I look at the Maasai people, they are slightly different in skin tone. No, it's to say somewhere in my heritage, if I am light-skinned, there was a white person in my heritage. And that proximity to whiteness grants me higher social status. And it's predictable, but it's also frustrating to see that within Black communities that we would say to each other, I am closer to our oppressors, and so I deserve more status. But that's exactly what has happened for a number of years. I think recently we are starting to come out of this more, but I don't think we've gotten rid of it entirely.
The problem is, okay, like you said, that period is gone. Martin Luther King even fought to lose his life for that. It's Blacks themselves making this distinction between them. So what's going on here?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is it. Anytime you have a group of people who are bound together, they are prone to conflict. And it's, you mentioned Martin Luther King. Malcolm X, for example, was prone to referring to himself as Redbone. Redbone is another one of these, pardon me, it's quite warm where I am, another one of these terms that is used to refer to a lighter complexion among African Americans, particularly in the South. We also have, and my family is from the state of Georgia originally, we also have the concept of being high yellow, as we call it. So I think that for so many years, for hundreds of years, we are given these distinctions and forced into this competition. And now that this competition is not made direct, I think it will take us a long time to learn other ways of evaluating each other. I think we're still carrying forward this legacy from slavery, and we still live in a society. Now, slavery in the United States has ended, but we still live in a society that prizes whiteness over Blackness. And so having that not having gone away entirely, I think remains a significant motivator for people to still engage in these kind of skin color conflicts. Oh, well, you are dark, you would have been in the fields, or you're light skinned, you would have been in the house, right? Again, that specific reference to the conditions of slavery.
Do you think this trend is having an impact on the elections?
Andy, I had never thought about that recently. I think it probably has. I know historically it has had impact. Now it's almost hard to say, because in so many places, Black people are so disenfranchised from voting power. It would be hard to figure it out. But what would be interesting to do is, if we go back in the United States to the period after emancipation, after slavery, to the year 1900, there were a record number of Black people elected to the U.S. Congress by freed slaves. And it would be interesting to know if they had a preference for light-skinned versus dark-skinned African Americans in their elections. Now, so many Black people are cut off from the ballot booth by restrictions all over the country. I think we'd actually have a hard time finding out the answer to your question.
In November, you're going for the election again.
Yes.
Yeah, is this giving you a new strategy or the way of doing your campaigns?
I don't think lightening my skin will get me any more votes. But I do think it is important here in Lancaster and everywhere else to work to unite more Black people. In my city, there are several thousand African American people, and there are more Black people in the city of Lancaster than ever vote in any election in the city of Lancaster. So if we could unite and motivate all of them, there would be a powerful political force. This is what I'm always trying to do. I like to do the canvassing. I like to do voter registration. So it is reminding me what's important when we go to the November elections.
Can this have an impact on our future? And how
from
can
this
we
period.
avoid the negative consequences?
Right. I think, it goes back to focusing on these connections within the community. And I think if you look at the example of Stacey Abrams and her program in Georgia, there is a need to unite African American voters by going directly to where they are, because that's the only way that we can get past things that are the legacy of slavery. Those consequences could be the consequences of division in the Black community, could be very real and keep us from accessing the power and justice that we deserve. And so we need to be in solidarity with one another if we hope to avoid those consequences.
In November, what are you going to tell the Black community in terms of unity and how you can get their voices to bring you back in the office?
Yes. So they have showed up for me in a big way in the May elections. But I think it is simply this.
Mm-hmm.
In the blackest part of Lancaster City, its most houses are rental housing.
Mm-hmm.
From those houses, $20 million every year leaves the community. And so what Black Unity provides us the opportunity to do is to, instead of sending that money out of the community to build wealth somewhere else, to keep it in this community to build wealth here and among Black people. And regardless of divisions, that should be a priority. And that's what I'm going to focus on making happen in November when I'm reelected. And so that's what I'm talking to people about. We have some exciting events coming up in Lancaster City for Juneteenth, which is an important emancipation celebration. So I'll probably be talking about these same things at those events.
The unity is still a problem. What message do you have? Because this division within the Black community is not helping. Not only you, but it's not helping the country as well.
It's not helping anybody. I think it is that there's two parts. One, that the costs of this division are too high. This is a very dangerous division, and it only serves people outside of our community who want to take advantage of it. And the benefits of unity are so great. The benefits of unity in the Black community could be having the housing that we deserve, having the wages and the candidates and the choices that we feel that we want and deserve. And you see, when you look at the civil rights movement, it was only through unity and coordination with the Black community that we were able to fundamentally change this country in the middle of the last century. And when unified, we have that same power. So, I feel that it is that the costs of division are so high and the benefits of unity are so great. So that's the message that I would offer to people on that front.
Is the Black community conscious about this?
I think some parts of it are, Andy, and some parts of it just are not. I think, many parts of the Black community are very busy, trying to survive, keep the housing up, keep the business up, make money, keep the family together. They don't really engage with thoughts like this. So I think it's up to people like you and I who have the opportunity to engage people on that level to raise the level of consciousness in the Black community.
When is this going to take an end? Because we have some races trying to survive just a living.
I will say, I think, again, this is a country that is built. The whole concept of the country, Andy, is built on the oppression of African American people. That is what kept our economy going for the first couple of hundred years. It sets the system for many of our laws. So I think that there are two reasons. So there's that thing, and that has bred such a struggle in unity, such a struggle to survive, that there is not the opportunity to unite and come together and, as you say, just live. Mm-hmm. There's this idea. There was a man, W.E.B. Du Bois, and he had this idea called the talented tenth. And this was the idea that 1 in every 10 African Americans, 1 in every 10 Black people, really had the talent, the opportunity to be a leader for our community, and that talented tenth needed to lead the rest of the community to justice, righteous, unification, and socioeconomic success. And we've gotten so caught up in that idea, the idea of extraordinary Black people, that we have not focused on, as you say, the right and ability of Black people to just live, right? So you will always have the Barack Obamas, right? You have, as an example, who are extraordinary and achieve great things. But this is not necessarily the same as everybody just being able to live their life as an American.
Are we continuing to complain, or we have to do something?
I think there's a role for both. Normally I think people would say, well, oh, we don't have time to complain, we have to do something. I think we both have to articulate what it is that is happening in this country and work on it at the same time. Mm-hmm. So, I think that is both, it is people's job. So you think about Martin Luther King Jr. Martin Luther King Jr. spent a lot of time talking about the problem of racism in this country to raise the level of consciousness. And you might say that was complaining, but he also organized in the Black community to get justice. We both have to talk about it and do it.
Yeah, but Martin Luther King talked about it and did it. Can we talk about the lack of leadership in Black community today?
I think that we absolutely can, but I think that by the same token, I think that we should talk about how the leadership in the Black community is not accorded the respect that it's due. I think there are a number of important Black leaders rising across the country today. And I think that there's a question of, are we, coming back to the unity question, are we working with them when they appear, or are we too busy tearing each other down to work together?
And what's the answer?
I think it's absolutely the latter. I think that, there are forces outside the Black community that want to tear these leaders down, and there's conflict inside the Black community that is also tearing these leaders down. I think that's the case.
Stacey Abrams is doing great thing. I think that's how we can get back to that. Is it something that can be considered in this country?
I think it absolutely is. I say this to people all the time. Wherever you are, there is a Stacey Abrams. There is somebody who is, working as hard as they can to get people elected and to deliver justice for our community. What we need to do is we have to find them. We have to find them and support them, because we talk about Stacey Abrams, the individual, but we often do not see the network of hundreds and thousands of supporters that she was able to build. Those are the people that require our time and investment. So less time, yelling at each other and sniping at each other and being divided, and more time finding our leaders and working with and supporting them.
What are you going to tell your voters in November? What's your part or your portion of Stacey Abrams in November?
Right. So, no, it's not an easy fight. It's actually extraordinarily hard, Andy. And I think the thing that we often forget is we think of elections and justice like we can show up to a protest or work at something for just 1 year and expect to get what we want. Mm-hmm. The Montgomery bus boycott was in 1955. This is Rosa Parks. Mm-hmm. Yep. The Second Civil Rights Act passed in 1968. That was 13 years of work, more than a decade, almost half my life, Andy. If we are not prepared to work for years, we're not going to deliver the justice that we deserve, and indeed the society that our children deserve.
Interesting. Where are you going to take Lancaster if elected in November?
Yeah, Andy, I'll tell you. Lancaster's businesses, even with the pandemic, are doing very well. Mm-hmm. Millions of dollars are coming in to this community. We have built new hotels, new restaurants, et cetera, et cetera. But there are still thousands of people in this city who do not benefit from all of that new money coming in. Now, their city is used by these people and these entities to make money, but that wealth does not return to them. And so that's going to be my focus over the next 4 years, is returning the wealth to the people of Lancaster, building home ownership and capital ownership in Black and brown, and here by brown, I mean Latino communities. And so when we have those assets, I think, when we have that control and that power, I think we're actually less likely to be in conflict. So much of the conflict in the African-American community is because maybe we have this little piece, and everybody wants their little piece of the piece. When we have the whole, when we are really working and living in the amount of power that we could have, then we know that there's enough for all of us, and we can work to achieve what it is that we deserve.
Black community. Now they are watching. So what would you tell them for unity? Like, my audience is your voters.
Well, if I had to tell them one thing,
yes,
start small. You don't have to fix all the problems in the Black community today. But do you have a neighbor, a family member, a relative? Do you have a leader in your community, a child who needs help to get to the next step? You help them get to the next step. They help you get to your next step. You help someone else. They help someone else. Start by building connections with one Black person and build a real relationship, not just a transaction, but actually talk about what it is that you want to achieve. And then when you've done that, do it again. And then when you've done that a second time, do it again. And if you keep doing it, if we all keep doing it again, we can get to unity.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is Ishmael Smith Wade L. Thank you very much, Ishmael, for your time.
Yeah, thank you, Andy. It's been an honor.